have myself, Emma Devon. Sadly, you won't be hearing much from me, but I will be your point of contact going forward after the webinar. If you have any questions or you would like to meet up to discuss anything further with the guys, please get in touch. Everyone attending today is entitled to use Cycloud's products for 3 months, which is a fantastic offer. And if you wish to avail of it, also contact me. The final slide will have my details and a QR code to a form for the offer. We have Michael Rooney, our MD at FutureRange. He's going to take over shortly and tell you about why we think Cycloud is a great product. Then from Cycloud, we have the Steves, Steve Dawes, founder and VP of Sales, and Steve Atkinson, also known as Rebus. He's the founder and CTO. And they're going to tell you about Cycloud, play some videos, and we have some demos for you as well. At the end, we will have a Q&A, and there's a chat box that you can use during the presentation as well. So over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Emma. So just to give you a little bit of background about FutureRange before we start. So we're an Irish managed IT services provider. We provide Azure, M365, IT support and consultancy. We're one of the few Citrix specialist companies in Ireland, and we've been a Citrix partner for many years, one of the first in Ireland. Being a Citrix partner, we've always tried to enhance Citrix's offering when it comes to desktops, and we're always on the lookout for new exciting technology that will improve our offer. In the past, that might have been technology like FS Logix, RAS, Liquidware, Sense. The list could go on and on, but we believe Cycloud fits into this category, and it will improve our Citrix offering or partners wishing to provision Citrix in public clouds. Over the years, we've had many requests to price Citrix in public clouds versus on-prem. Most of these requests are for Azure, sometimes other cloud platforms. From a technical standpoint, the #1 concern is always how do we provision VDAs at scale, ensure that each VDA is identical, they all have the same Windows updates, etc., etc. You can't run PBS in a cloud environment, and MCS has always been slow compared to on-prem. This is mostly due to the limitation placed on the number of API calls that can be made at any one time. Microsoft and Citrix have recently addressed some of these issues. Things have improved slightly. However, we've seen other issues in the past. One example would be where MCS doesn't clean up your disks fully. And at the end of the month, the customer gets an unexpected storage bill. We have to go through the Azure portal, deleting disks. Along with the technical concerns, when we drill into the pricing, customers often get a bit of a shock when they see the price compared to running it on-prem. It just doesn't stack up. If they do decide to go ahead with it, you face a constant fight keeping consumption in check and in line with the price that you promised the customer. Anyone running in a public cloud probably has experienced this at some point. This is where Cycloud comes in. It addresses all these concerns. We believe it's a better way to run Citrix VDAs in the public cloud. I know it's kind of bandied about an awful lot, but really, Cycloud is a no-brainer with the money you potentially save. I'm going to hand you over to the two Steves to explain how Cycloud works, why you need it. Thanks.
Thanks, Michael. We're really pleased to have the opportunity to meet you all virtually at this unprecedented time. I think that COVID-19 is dramatically changing the way that people are viewing flexible working. I believe the changes could be quite long-lasting. Many customers are looking to get their workloads to the cloud, but also a way of handling and reducing their cloud costs. Steve Atkinson and I both worked at Citrix for over 10 years, and we're really focused on helping Citrix customers get the most value from public cloud. We saw a big gap in the market for provisioning and optimization, and we've been working on this product for quite a long time now. And of course, we're delighted to be receiving support from FutureRange, one of Citrix's longest serving partners in Ireland. So for our part in this webinar, we'll show you a couple of short clips which explain what we're doing and why. And then Steve Atkinson will show the product provisioning and deprovisioning of VDAs, then dynamically provisioning a VDA when the infrastructure is coming under pressure. We'll be happy to take your questions at the end.
divert desktops into the cloud. Cloud desktops are extremely beneficial. They facilitate flexible working and BYOD. You can drop real estate costs, scale up or down as business changes, and help you reduce your CO2 emissions. Move Citrix desktops to public cloud, Cycloud will save you a vast sum of money. If you could watch your Microsoft Azure service for 24 hours a day, you could save yourself a fortune. And that's why we developed Cycloud. Cycloud is a unique solution for managing desktops in public clouds. If you have perpetual Citrix licenses, Cycloud will support your preferred partner to move your Zen app and Zen desktops from your premises to the cloud. If you're already in the cloud, even better, we can help you start saving on your cloud costs straight away. Cloud resources are provisioned to suit your work schedule, so you only pay for what you use. Let's look at a typical company using Cycloud. It's 6 o'clock, staff are going home, it's time to deprovision the infrastructure. The following morning, the infrastructure is reprovisioned in time for the company to start work. This scenario would save a company approximately 115 hours a week on their Azure charges. Most companies would like to move and manage their...
So we're going to hand you over to Steve Atkins for a demo and provision.
Great, thanks, Michael. Well, let's first of all look at the demo environment, and it's a very simple one. We just have a number of, well, just a couple of instances actually that have already been provisioned in Azure for this demonstration. One's a delivery controller, and the other one is a domain controller. And we also have a Microsoft scaling set, which is extremely important to us, and it's why we're different really from other means of provisioning Citrix technologies. MCS actually doesn't use a scaling set, and as you can see, there are no instances assigned to it at the moment. It's completely empty. Now, when we do provision these instances on a schedule, on a time schedule, they will appear in Active Directory in this organizational unit. So at this point, there is absolutely nothing in there. Likewise, there is absolutely nothing in the Citrix environment either. It's completely empty, so there's absolutely no VDAs that have been deployed. So, going back to the portal, we've scheduled 2 instances to be scheduled in a minute's time. So what will happen when the minute ticks over? All we will need to do is to refresh the Azure portal, and you'll see that the instances are being created. So it will take about 10 minutes or so for those to be created, and then once they're up and running, they'll domain join in Active Directory. One important distinction here is that we actually provision these instances across cloud zones. And that's another very, very important point. Other technologies may not necessarily do that. Now, of course, once they're actually domain joined, the next thing is to do the join into the various Citrix catalogs and delivery groups. And that will happen completely automatically. And there you can see they've actually arrived. So at this point, once they're registered, they'll be fully operational. So let's log on to one of them. So we'll just use Citrix Receiver on SharePoint, and we'll log in. And then we can observe the deprovisioning process, because these instances have only been scheduled to exist for about 20 minutes or so, just enough to do our demonstration. So here we go. We're actually logging on to one of them right now. And just to make absolutely sure, and just to point out to you that these are in fact domain joined, we'll just go into Control Panel. And you can see that this is domain joined to the Cycloud. domain. Now, if we actually go back to the Citrix Studio, we can also see, if we do a refresh on that, we can actually then identify the machine that we've actually logged on to. And as you can see, there it is. Now, if we go back to the machine, let's observe the deprovisioning process. So in a couple of minutes' time, we'll see what happens. Now, obviously, the first thing that we should do, or we must do, is to inform any users that are using the machine that these machines have actually been selected for deprovisioning. Now, this is completely configurable. You don't have to do that, but I think it's probably good manners to do that. So there you can see the first message informing the users that this machine will be deprovisioned, and it's probably better to save their work and log off. But they probably won't, like users don't usually. But if they're lucky and the administrator's kind, they'll get a second message. And as I say, these are completely configurable. You can put whatever wording you like in there. And this particular point, the machine will be deprovisioned. Now, in this particular demonstration, it doesn't really matter whether the user remains logged in or whether they don't. If they're still logged in and they still ignore those messages, they'll be logged out anyway. And we have to have users logged off of the machines in order to deprovision them properly. So once that machine's been deprovisioned, they will take themselves out of the appropriate catalogs and Citrix infrastructure, and they'll also take themselves out of Active Directory as well. So if we do a refresh on that, you'll see them disappear. And the really, really important part of this is that when we go back to the Azure portal and we refresh that, this is the point when those machines are no longer chargeable, and this is where we save the money. There is absolutely nothing left behind, no disks, no nothing. So back to you, Steve.
Cycloud Robotic Manager monitors performance and utilization, making adjustments to the service so it aligns with company policies. Meet Rebus, our robotic manager. Rebus monitors Azure performance 24 hours a day. He assesses CPU, memory, and user utilization. If a server is coming under pressure, he adds capacity. Underutilized servers will be deprovisioned.
Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to show you machines being provisioned dynamically. So in order to do this, we've already provisioned a couple of machines. They're already domain joined, and they're already registered with the Citrix infrastructure. So these machines are at this time fully operational. So what we'll do is we'll log on to one of them, and what we'll do is we'll artificially generate some load on that machine. And then you can see how a machine is able to provision a further machine if it encounters a performance event. Now, for this demonstration, we're just going to use this application. And this application allows us to generate load on the machine. Now, we're going to simulate one based around available memory. Now, this particular machine has it has 4 gig of memory in it. So what we'll do is we'll artificially take that memory down to 25%. So we'll select 500 megabytes of memory to remain. And what's going to happen is that machine is going to have its memory reduced to about 25%. Now, what we've done is we've configured Cycloud to wait and monitor, in this case, memory. And anything that drops below, in terms of available memory, below 30%, what we'll do is we'll generate a performance event, and we'll then start to ensure that both the user is aware of that, and also that we can then automatically provision a further instance. Now, as you can see, the memory is being reduced. It will bottom out at about 500 megs, which is good. And then what will happen is the performance event will be generated. Now, this is completely configurable. You don't have to inform the user that there's an event. Perhaps you decide to not worry them. And that's completely configurable. But in this particular case, because we wanted to show it, the user has been informed. And at this point, they don't know anything about it, but a further instance has been generated. Now, if we go back to the Azure portal and we look at the scaling set, we can actually see another machine being provisioned automatically. So the administrator hasn't needed to get involved at all with that. So after about 10 minutes, again, takes Azure about 10 minutes to build that machine. If we do a refresh on it, you can see that that's the dynamically provisioned machine that's just been generated. And again, we make the point that we actually balance that across the cloud zones, and we also mark it as dynamically provisioned. And that's because we have to deprovision it in a slightly different way, but we haven't got time to go into it in this particular demonstration. So if we go, the last thing, go into Citrix Studio, just do a refresh on that, and we'll see it appear. And at that point, of course, it's fully operational because it's been registered. And that can be used by any user coming into the infrastructure. So that's a dynamically configured Citrix resource that's had absolutely nothing to do with any administrator or user making a decision. It's the system generating that instance based on performance of that particular machine. Okay, back to you, Steve.
So for a Citrix Xenout farm of 1,000 users, savings of over 300,000 euros a year could be expected. There are obviously potential additional savings on redeploying or retiring the customer's existing data center infrastructure. We would love to help you enjoy the benefits of Citrix Cloud desktops at optimum cost and efficiency, just like our current customers and partners.
So guys, that comes to the end of the presentation. I hope you enjoyed and you found it very interesting. We think it's a great product, as Michael said, a no-brainer. My contact details are on the screen and the QR code if you want to enter for your 3 months free use of the products. So we're going to take some Q&A. I've had a few questions come in during the webinar, so I'm going to read them out first just to kick things off. And the first one is, what markets does this mostly apply to?
Well, let me take that one. I think all markets are applicable for it because it delivers significant cost savings. So any market sector that's looking to drive costs down on their cloud infrastructure, such as financial services, government departments, look at sort of educational establishments where they're only actually using the infrastructure for a small fraction of the time. So to be able to just sort of pay as you go or pay as you use the cloud services would be fantastic for them.
A similar question is, what size company would mostly benefit from this?
Again, anybody really, but I suppose if you've got 50 to 100 users using Citrix, depending on what they are and what you're doing with them, they could benefit from this. Way up to multi-thousands of users on an infrastructure. The savings are just pretty linear, so whoever wants to make the savings.
Okay, how does this compare to MCS?
Yeah, that's a predictable question. I'll take that one. Well, we probably haven't got enough time to go into all of the differences and how it benefits, but just to choose a few. I think the first one Michael mentioned at the very, very beginning, and that's that MCS isn't particularly great in terms of performance, and it's really intrinsically about the way that it actually uses or the mechanisms that it actually uses to provision instances. We do things completely differently. We actually leverage the cloud infrastructure a whole lot more than what MCS does. And what it's able to do, or what we're able to do, is to scale pretty much infinitely without the same performance limitations. The other thing as well is that MCS is very, very bad at cleaning up after itself. And again, Michael mentioned this right at the very beginning. I mean, MCS can tend to leave lots of bits hanging around afterwards, which wouldn't be too bad on-prem. But when you're running in cloud, you really don't want orphaned catalogs and base disks being hanging around. The way that we do this and the way that we deprovision means that we leverage the cloud infrastructure, and we certainly don't have any elements of a virtual machine or an instance hanging around afterwards. The other thing as well is that MCS hasn't got a committed roadmap to support and further development for on-premises versions of Citrix products, whereas we do. We will support the on-premise version. We'll also support the cloud, Citrix Cloud versions of their products as well. So we have got a focus on supporting provisioning to public clouds, certainly now and certainly into the future.
Okay, one last question, slightly more challenging. What does Citrix think about this?
Well, I guess it depends who you talk to in Citrix. If you are somebody who's at an executive level and you care about retaining your customers, you want to give customers the best solution you can give them, then we shouldn't be a threat for them in any shape or form. We help them to keep their customers happy. If they see a risk of losing a customer, then we can be deployed to actually help keep them using their Citrix Zen app and Zen desktop. Anybody that doesn't want to go to Citrix Cloud for whatever reason, again, we're an option for them. So I think inherently we are helping Citrix to service their customers.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, have we any live questions from anybody? No. Okay, thanks everyone for coming. Please get in touch. I hope you enjoyed.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks.
Bye.